Ladies and gentlemen, damas y caballeros, it's Leave It in the Ring.
And welcome back to another edition of Leaving Radio. I'm your host, Dave Duenis, with my co-host, Mr. Gable Montoya. Boy, do we have a lot of stuff to talk about. Two major things that are in the news right now for the boxing world to really start putting their hands together and going, ooh, this is going to get good. First off is the whole Golden Boy Civil War. Schaefer and De La Hoya, their body language at the fight this past weekend with the Thurman and Diaz fight. Also, I don't know if you guys caught this, but Steve Kim from Max Boxing tweeted out there about Kathy Duva filing a complaint against Al Haymon. And that, to me, is the big news there. That, to me, is something that's really, really going to stir the pot for a lot of folks in the boxing industry, especially for the men in boxing. Because it's the sad part here is that you have a woman that's going to come in and say, you know what? And just imagine this. She's coming in with a little boombox with the song going, we're not going to take it, right? And she's going to do something that a lot of men in the business are afraid to do, which is step up and start pointing fingers and saying, yo, this is wrong. The monopoly of what you guys are doing and trying to keep us out on the outside, the smaller promoters, of getting any type of television slots, any exposure, or keeping our fighters away from you, from any of your guys' fighter ever fighting. And the only way that's going to happen is if they jump ship and, sail down to your island, is the only way they're going to get a payday, and a decent payday is that. So Kathy Duva stepping it up and saying, I'm filing the complaint, and I'm going to start opening these closed doors so that the rest of the world can see exactly what these other guys are manipulating. And Gabe, I think you received the filed complaint, right? You were able to read that, or how did that play out for you?
Yeah, I've been I curled up with that yesterday, just like a good book. I want to make myself like a hot chocolate and just kind of chill and read the tale of the alleged plot to take over Golden Boy and away from Oscar De La Hoya. Basically what we've been saying all along: create a league of their own. And kind of sign all the talent and monopolize, corporatize the sport. I think it even goes further to even get, like people think that HBO was the only cable company that was going to get spurned here, but kind of looks more like everybody's going to be eventually, like Showtime as well. It's just kind of what we've been talking about all along, is what the suit alleges. I mean, there is the initial issues about the Stevenson and Kovalev fight, no doubt. That's the main issue here. But then everything that, in order to put it into context, the complaint paints the rest of the picture of Al Haymon within the sport of boxing, how he's alleged to have been operating for years and to what end. And it's a very clear picture of trying to monopolize the sport, sign away all the talent, kind of pull the strings from behind the scenes while being, that ambiguous advisor role, which is neither promoter nor manager, but yet somehow both. It's very interesting reading. It's really, this is the thing that it's kind of like thinking, my writer brain is always, you want to come up with some line to put it all in perspective and to show how brave Kathy Duva is. And I think it's insulting to say that, she's, the only boxing promoter with a set of balls in the sport. I think that's insulting to her, because I don't think being brave is necessarily, and doing what's right is necessarily a male attribute. Being a man doesn't make you instantly courageous. Because I know a lot of moral cowards in this sport that happen to be male. So I think what Kathy Duva is just a brave human being, a brave woman. In a man's world, this sport has always been male-dominated. But really, she's showing who the adult is and who the real person is, of character, that's what she's showing.
She's showing what this is what you do when you have to fight for what you've built. And when somebody tries to come in your house and trying to destroy everything that you and your family have built up together, this is her showing I'm not gonna lay down. I'm gonna fight back. I'm gonna do what any living person would do, is to survive, is to fight back, and that's exactly what she's doing.
Yeah, and I think it's enough is enough. It's kind of like how many times you can have the border moved, How many times you can have somebody walk over and take a dump in your lawn and then kind of just say it's okay. I mean, when people, it's not just against Haymon, it's against Golden Boy and also Showtime. And it talks about Espinoza in not so nice terms. It's all kind of the things I've intimated on the show that you've talked about, this monopoly and this kind of all under one umbrella mentality, and just like the fact that you have a lead counsel of Golden Boy running Showtime Boxing. How can you not, and the idea that they're, I've had other industry people come forward to me and say, this idea that, we'll work with any promoter, that just doesn't seem to be the case, is what this one person was saying to me. And others have said it, in the past when my other article came out just a couple of weeks ago when I interviewed Kathy and talked to her about this very issue, the monopolization and corporatization of the sport. It's a tricky thing to keep the sport fractured and have all the different promoters, kind of vying for the top spot and vying for the TV spots. But at the same time, that's kind of good for the sport because everybody should be putting their best foot forward. When you get these deals that are exclusive, we've seen this in the past with Golden Boy over at HBO. I mean, it wasn't always garbage, but they had the leverage to just do whatever they wanted. And so sometimes you just got garbage and you got favor fights. That's the danger of monopolizing in the sport.
Right.
And also the fighters don't seem to have any control. That's probably the best reading of this. I'm just kind of going over it because I'm not a contract lawyer, but there's an Al Haymon contract in there, an advisory contract. And it's, you wonder, is it a template? Is it the standard? But it's very interesting reading. I think this opens up all kinds of things. Federal investigation.
Don't forget.
If she wins the case is imminent.
Don't forget to send me that so I can read it too. I got to read this.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll run to the bathroom. It's sitting next to the toilet, and I will grab it. It makes for a good read.
Next to this issue's Playboy magazine.
Yeah, it's like I move everything out, light some candles. I really set the moment, because this is what it's all about right here. This is the moment.
Right.
Very interesting.
Really interesting stuff. Hey, today we're gonna have a roundtable for the moment, the Mayweather versus Madonna fight. Not a lot of buzz about it. I got to tell you that, but we decided that we're gonna let other folks come on and make their predictions. So we have a pretty good lineup here. First up is going to be Mike Rodriguez, who's the Cup man and is also one of the guys from War Tape. He's going to be coming on. You guys heard him. He's come on and talked about the safety for fighters. He'll be on about 11:15. About 11:30, we're going to have strength and conditioning coach for Abner Mars, Luis Garcia. He's going to come through and give us his prediction and who he thinks is going to win that fight. And then a little later, we're going to have a trainer here in my town right now, where I live at, Tony Avila, who is the owner of Bad to the Bone Boxing Gym in Modesto, California. And then a little later, we're going to have the welterweight champion, Sean Porter, with his father, trainer Ken Porter, with us here on Leaving the Ring about 12:30. Noontime, we're going to give up our predictions, and we're going to talk about this past weekend fights, especially about the big buzz, what happened between Molina and Matisse. That was a big fight there. We knew that something was going to be special out of that fight. And you know what? My prediction almost came true, Gabriel. Molina almost pulled it off. He almost had it in the bag for him. But Matisse is just he's a tough nut to crack. Sometimes we felt like it wasn't even enough. But here we go. Steve Kidd from Max Boxing here on Leaving the Ring. What's up, Steve?
Gentlemen, good morning, good afternoon to you.
How you doing, Steve?
I'm doing well. I just got out of yoga. I'm nice and stretched out.
All right. Well,
I got to go back. Man. I'm all stiff.
If Kathy Duba's complaint has any merit to it, Richard Schaefer and Al Haymon are going to be nice and stretched out. I know you're writing a piece about it. Can you give us a little preview and insight into the complaint, as it were?
Well, we're going to find out if it has any merit. I just want to know exactly how binding is an email as it relates to Kathy Duva and Yvonne Michelle when it came to the Sergey Kovalev-Adonis Stevenson fight that has gone by the wayside. But what I find interesting is that this complaint, and I have a copy of it, and as do you, Gabe, actually has a copy of the Al Haymon agreement. And a lot of people are telling me that's basically a promotional agreement that make it illegal in a lot of ways. I think that process of discovery, if it gets that far, is going to be really interesting. I think this case, if it has any legs to it and has any real ramifications, it won't be about Stevenson Kovalev. I don't think it's going to force that fight to happen. I think the schedule is already set, the die is cast. But I think what it's going to do is shine the light on exactly what is going on as it relates to Al Haymon. I mean, this even referenced the strife going on at Golden Boy between Richard Schaefer and Oscar De La Hoya, where it alleges in one of the pages that it's well known throughout the industry that Richard Schaefer and Al Haymon are trying to wrest control of that company from Oscar De La Hoya. I think it's a fascinating case, and basically my story is not going to shed any more light than what Chris Mannix or Scott Schaefer, who did a really nice job for Boxing Talk, or Kevin Ioli. My story is basically going to be about the perspective, and I got some quotes and some thoughts from Kathy Duva about exactly why they're doing this. So I think it's interesting. I mean, there's a lot of fights going on in boxing, and the best ones are going on outside the ring, whether it relates to Julio Cesar Chavez and Top Rank, Andre Ward and Dan Goossen again. And this case here, I think, could really, I don't know if I want to say have a seismic change in the business, but it could certainly have a ripple effect because the ever-growing presence of Al Haymon, let's face it, it's pervasive and it is affecting the fights that we see.
Yeah, that's the thing. I mean, it's a precedent-setting case. I mean, it really does kind of seem to be, just busting it out finally. I mean, I find it interesting over the years how much you've written about him, I've written about him. I know Doug has probably mentioned him in his mailbags a few times, and more than a few times. But like early on in the day, like you guys were been covering it the whole time as you've noticed this kind of disparity. And I think that's the biggest thing here is the contract coming out, but then all those people, if it gets to this point, that are going to be deposed, the Lou DiBellas, Dan Goossen, Gary Shaw, people that have worked with Al Haymon. Do you think it can get to that point? I mean, is the lawsuit big enough that it can cover it and start to kind of bring in this larger picture? Well,
that's one of my points that I'm going to make is that, once again, Kathy Duva, as I've called her before, she's the ballsiest broad in the business. She's got more guts than most of the men. And you're right, the guys that have been towering or complicit with Al Haymon, what are they going to do here? Because this does directly affect them. And I give Kathy Duva a lot of credit. She could be part of the problem or she could create a solution. She believes that she's a fighter, and she's feisty. There's no doubt about it. I think she's one of the brightest minds in all of boxing. And she had enough. And I think she's not only fighting for her business, she's also fighting for the dynamic of the boxing business in general. And, there's a strange subset of fans and journalists or writers or bloggers or jock sniffers who get credentials who are rooting for Al Haymon as if they're part of the team, as if they're basically an extension of Sam Watson's kids walking in the fighters and acting as part of the entourage. I've never really quite understood that dynamic. But
right.
As a fight fan, I want to see the best fights. I don't want to see fights broken up. I don't want to see this obstruction. And to basically root for Al Haymon, that's like rooting for Microsoft or something. I don't know what you really get out of it. I want to see what happens here. I want to see because in the past, Al Haymon has been a very dark, shadowy figure. I mean, for the last decade, most people have believed that it's Sam Watson who was actually Al Haymon. I mean, that's how much of a Machiavellian figure he's been, almost like Kaiser Soze. Well, Al Haymon, for some reason, has skirted a lot of spotlight, and he shunned it. Now, with this lawsuit coming, I don't think this will be the only one, guys. I think this will be the first of several actions against him, because I think people have had enough. Now, how will he deal with him actually being known and then actually scrutinized.
What do you think is what happened out of this outcome here, Steve? Is this something that you think is going to take an overall of years to come up with a solution? Do you think this is something that can happen behind closed doors before reaching court? What do you think the outcome is going to be?
I really don't know. I mean, that could be up to the court. I'm not a lawyer. I read the legal filing yesterday, and I just was more entertained by it than anything, and I'll have to be educated by people that know much more than me. But I think the outcome is hopefully there's a fair and level playing field, and there's not a monopoly created. For all these boxing fans that want a monopoly, first of all, monopolies don't work. I don't think they're good for any business. I mean, look at the phone companies for years with AT&T or Bob Bell. That didn't help, I don't think, the consumers. What I think is going to happen here is that Al Haymon will hopefully, if this works out, Al Haymon will realize you can't act in the way you do. You have to respect other people's contracts. I think that, to me, if they are buzzing other fighters' ears, and we've all heard the rumors, interfering in contracts, blowing up fights, to me, I want that to stop. Not good for the business. I think it's our job as the media to kind of point it out. And, this is a long-range story that we have to write, and I think it's fascinating because there's an irony that now HBO is getting hurt by this guy and his actions or his influence and his power, when in large part HBO, under the regime of Ross Greenberg and Kerry Davis, basically enabled this. This is their creation, and this cannot be stated enough. And these guys should not be forgotten, because Ken Hirschman deserves a lot of criticism. But some of these problems that are currently plaguing the business of boxing was a direct result of the, I think, incredibly misguided leadership of Greenberg and Davis for over a decade.
And it being underreported, that it was happening right under everybody's nose. I don't think, I think you took it as far as you could. Hauser did. But, the big question I want to hear in this is why the disparity in purses, the mechanics of how that happened. And that's a question nobody really answered. It's all just kind of been left to fester. You're absolutely right.
Right, and, we had guys flat out saying there is no influence of Al Haymon. Well, that was incorrect, and that's why nobody reads those guys. They don't know anything. So
exactly.
Now I think people have to at least acknowledge, wow, this Al Haymon, number one, he is influential, he is powerful. And number two, is that a good thing? And we're going to soon find out. I think this is, as Terrell Owens once said, get your popcorn ready.
There you go.
Yeah, no doubt, without question.
Well, Steve, again, brother, thanks for coming on and filling us in about this complaint here by Kathy Duva towards Al Haymon and Showtime. I appreciate it.
Absolutely, guys. Great show. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Steve. Have a great one.
Well, we're at the end of our show here on Leaving the Ring. Everybody, have a safe weekend. Enjoy your weekend. It's my birthday weekend because my birthday is on Monday, which is Cinco de Mayo. I'm actually a Cinco de Mayo baby. So you guys be out there, be safe. If you're in Las Vegas, make sure you're responsible. Drink responsible. Don't drink and drive because you know what happens. You will spill your beer. We'll catch up with you guys next week, Thursday, here on Leaving the Ring. Don't forget Monday nights, you got the next round with Gabriel Montoya and Steve Kim. And then, oh my God, I almost got tongue-tied here. Boxeo Tijuana Radio, an all-Spanish network that is presented by the Leaving Ring Network to you on your mobile app, comes on every Tuesday. And then yours here, truly here, Leaving the Ring Radio, the guys that like to throw an hour rant about why our sport is so screwed up, but then continue to watch the sport. Because I've had a lot of people, come at me and they go like, well, if you hate the sport so much, why do you watch it? I don't know. Why do people watch train wrecks? Why do people watch car crashes? It's there. Anyways, hey, Gabriel, you have a good weekend, brother. Yeah,
you too, man.
And
I will see you at the fights, or in one way or another. Peace.
All right.